episode of, oh guys, I keep starting these videos like that, like I'm starting my podcast. I've forgotten how I start my videos. If you watched my last one, then you'll know that I've forgotten. It's been too long. I don't know how to record videos anymore. But yeah, I was just gonna say hi and welcome to Peace in the Promise. I am Marimbe, aka Peace in the Promise. I'm living in the promises of God for my life. Yes. Not gonna lie to you guys, I am hot. I am like halfway through this pregnancy and I already run hot normally. Like I'm a hot-blooded, you know, we're supposed to be warm-blooded. I'm hot-blooded. So summer, autumn, winter, spring, I'm sweating the whole time. So add pregnancy on top of that, I'm hot. I'm sweating. Gotta stay hydrated. And I can't lie to you, I was gonna wear this jacket in this video to complete this look and look cute with my space buns and my look. But this heat and this sweatiness, it just won't let me be great. So I'm not gonna suffer for anybody. I'm taking it off. You saw the jacket on, you saw how cute it would have looked, and now it is off. So that's too bad. Anyways, today guys, I'm talking about the realities of the promised land. The realities or the reality of the promised land. Hey, who knows about the promised land, guys? I'm like jumping right into it today. But who knows about the promised land? If you don't, you don't know. Go to, well, the Old Testament and read probably Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I get through Exodus, then I get to the beginning of, I think it's Leviticus, and then I start to just, my brain just starts to shut down when I try to read Leviticus, I call it Deuteronomy Jutes. Like Exodus is my book, it's my jam, I love it so much. But I get to Deuteronomy, Leviticus, I'm like, I'm lost. I'm sorry Lord, but you've created my concentration to be like this. So I'm just gonna need you to help me out. If I start sweating in this video, you already know why. Pregnancy. Hot-blooded. Anyway, so yeah, so we're going to talk about the realities of the promised land. So can we talk about it? So many of us, we're looking for promised lands of some sort, right? Whether we are looking for like the perfect job, the perfect man's, the perfect woman's, I don't know, like if you're a dude watching this, you're looking for like, I don't know, paradise on earth, you know, peace on earth, everything beautiful, the land of milk and honey, whatever that looks like to you, you're looking for it. And you're like, I want it here, earthside. I don't want to have to wait to reach the gates of glory, the pearly gates, New Jerusalem, in order to feel and attain perfection and wonderfulness and enjoyment. I want to enjoy life here, earthside, right? So everyone has their own little promised land, whether it's like a small thing, so like you're like, oh, I hate this job, so I want the new job, I want a new job. So that could be your promised land, the new job. Or like, you know, I don't know, just a change of circumstances. Maybe you're in some stuff and you just want to get out of it. Maybe you are in Egypt and you're like, I'm sick of this, I'm sick of this Egypt, I need to break free. Maybe you're in the wilderness and you're like, I'm sick of roaming around in nothingness. I don't know where I'm going, I know where I'm supposed to be, but it doesn't look like where I am does not add up to where I'm supposed to be, right? So we're all looking for that promised land of sorts, you know, in our lives. So sorry, let me jump back. If you've not read the Bible, if you don't know what I'm talking about. So pretty much the promised land is the land of Canaan. It was promised to the Israelites way back when, I was gonna say millions of years ago, but anyway, a long time ago. God promised pretty much the first father of faith, Abraham. He said, look, I'm gonna bless you with descendants, I'm gonna give you a land, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. So that promise extended down throughout Abraham's genealogy, his family line, and the people of Israel were then, you know, they were kept as slaves in Egypt, and then eventually God sent Moses to help deliver them out of Egypt and yeah, to journey to the promised land. But because the Israelites were, you know, just like us today, they complained a lot, they were quite ungrateful, this, that, whatever, God saw it fit for them to roam the wilderness for 40 years. The funny thing is, I'm pretty sure, let me get the scripture, and if I find it, I'll put it up. But they literally got to the promised land, like the edge of the promised land, pretty quick. But it's because they were faithless and they didn't believe God would be able to get them through or to get them in, and they didn't believe they would be able to conquer the land. Then God's like, alright then, if y'all gonna be like that, y'all can roam this wilderness for the next 40 years until all the old guys die and only the young people with faith are gonna come through. I was like, oh! So they were actually there at the cusp of the promised land. They could have entered, but because of their own lack of faith, their own, you know, they weren't grateful or anything like that, they didn't come in. So it just makes me think, oh, how many of us, that's a word, how many of us are just at the cusp of our promised land, but because we are so blinded by our ungratefulness, by being jealous, by comparing, by complaining about everything we don't have, that we don't even get to access it or enter it because we're just not grateful. Lord, that's a humbling scripture. But anyway, what I'm talking about today is the realities of the actual promised land, right? Sometimes we're like, when I get to the promised land, it's going to be amazing. When I get to the promised land, it's just going to be sweet. When I get to the promised land, it will be the land of milk and honey. There will be no issues, no problems, no dramas, no whatever. These issues I'm facing today, nah, I'm not going to see anything like it, and whatever. Sweet, right? But let's talk about it. Let's be real. Sometimes we think that joy is like on the other side of an open door, or like an answered prayer, or of like the deliverance of a situation, right? We think like, okay, once I get there, then I will feel this, you know? But I'm going to talk about, that's just one of the misconceptions that we have about the promised land, or like blessings or breakthrough, or when God answers our prayers, right? So yeah, I'm going to talk about some misconceptions that we have regarding the promised land. So I think misconception number one is, when I get to the promised land, I will be content. Let's break that right now. Because if you think that, you know, a change of circumstances is going to be what determines what your joy is going to be like, then you're already mistaken. Like, there's a thing, I don't know, it's a quote that I read or something that God told me. It's just like, contentment, it is not in a change of circumstance. It's not found in a change of circumstances. It's a heart posture. So it's found in a transformation of the heart. So if you look at it, the Israelites weren't actually allowed into the promised land because they were still ungrateful outside. So what makes us think that, like, you know, okay, when I'm still ungrateful, suddenly when I jump into the promised land, then I'm going to be grateful. Or I'm still, like, you know, faithless outside. So what makes me think that suddenly when I jump into the promised land, I'm going to be full of faith? You're not going to be. Guys, pray for me. I'm sweating. Call, I was gonna say 911. Call 000. Don't do that. This makeup is from a previous video, and I was like too lazy to take it off, so I said, let me enjoy this makeup. Now I'm regretting this choice. Just excuse my sweat, because I'm just gonna keep sweating. Long story short, contentment is not found in a change of circumstances. It's changing your heart position. So I'm just going to say it how I wrote it. So quite often we think that like peace, joy, contentment, happiness, fulfillment is on the other side of an answered prayer, when quite often these qualities, they're cultivated in the wilderness. And we don't like to hear that. We're like, what you mean I'm supposed to be grateful in the wilderness? I'm thirsty, I'm hot, I'm hungry, I want food other than manna and meat. I want some, you know, I want some salad, I want some grapes. I want some variety up in here, Jesus. And he's here giving you quail and manna. You're like, I'm a vegetarian. How am I supposed to just live? You know, your word says man shall not live on bread alone, and I'm here living on bread. I'm here living on manna. What's going on? Anyways, so we think that like we're magically going to be grateful in the promised land. But Jesus, well, God actually let the people, the faithless generation, die out, so the faithful and faith-filled generation could actually enter the promised land. So it's not even God, I think in a way that's God showing us, like, it's not like you get to the destination and then you become joyful. That stuff is cultivated in the journey. It is cultivated in the wilderness. Gratitude, faithfulness, being loyal, remaining, you know, trusting in God, being surrendered to him. That is cultivated in the dark seasons, in the seasons where maybe you're not hearing him so clearly. And in the in-between, literally the wilderness is like the in-between. Like he might have spoken a promise to you, and now it's like you're on your way to the journey, to the promise, but it feels like it's taken like 10 years or 6 months or however long it's taking, and you're like, this is not adding up. Like, I'm not seeing my promise, even though I feel like I'm on the journey there. But I'm like, your voice is like static. It's fading in and out. God, like, are you even still here? But, you know, the gratitude and the faith, staying full of faith and trusting in God, that is all cultivated in that process, in the journey to the promised land, not just being in the promised land itself. Because if we're not grateful beforehand, we're going to get in there and then we're going to do what the Israelites did in the wilderness. We'll start building golden calves and we're like, oh, these are the ones that delivered us and saved us from, you know, Egypt. But it's like, you know, we're so quick to forget that it's actually God. So he's like, I need to train you guys to actually know it's me that helped you through this. It's me that actually is here with you and for you. Yeah, so that's a misconception number one. When I get XYZ, then I will be happy. Wrong. Cultivate that joy now. Learn to be grateful now. Whether you are in the pit, whether you are in Egypt, whether you are in the wilderness, learn to cultivate that joy where you are, because it's not going to magically arise when you reach that destination. Because guess what? We're going to be jumping into the next misconception. You know, it's not going to be easy in the promised land. It's a blessing, but the promised land will come with its own challenges and responsibilities. So I tell you what I want, what I really, really want. So tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I wanna really, really, really want a zig. Guys, this hair is giving me like Spice Girl vibes. I actually had like pigtails and it reminded me of when I was in high school. But I was like, that's a little bit too cray. I like how these space buns look anyway. So misconception number two. Misconception number two is when I get to the promised land, things will be easy. Incorrect. That is incorrect. You got, anyway, let me ask you this. I think I wrote a post on this on Instagram a while back, but I was like, you know what, I was reflecting, like, when the Israelites got to the promised land, when they eventually actually got inside and, you know, they began to conquer it, like, they actually had to like chase out the original people. God was on their side and he helped them do it, but they had to physically like fight the people, get them, whatever they did to them. Like, you know, they had to chase the people out of that place. They had to clear that land for them to be in it. And once they actually obtained the land, you know, they were responsible for maintaining it, for farming it, for, you know, cultivating, for planting the seeds, for plowing, for doing all this stuff. It wasn't like they just got there and then, you know, they were waited on, you know, hand and foot, like people were bringing them grapes and whatever. They had to work. They got to the promised land and they still had a responsibility in that promised land. God gave them the promised land, but he gave them responsibility over it. Just like, you know, God gave Adam and Eve, or man, the responsibility. He gave them the earth, but he actually gave them responsibility to rule over it. So sometimes we think, oh, when I get there, finally, whew, I'll be able to chill back. I'll be able to sit down, put my feet out. I won't have to do anything. Like, and then meanwhile, you're actually in your promise, but you're seeing it as a curse because you actually have responsibility. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought I would get here and I wouldn't have to work. Let's say you prayed for kids. And you're like, oh, if I just have a child, then I'll be at peace and I'll be whole. Then that kid turns 3 or turns 2 or 3 and starts to get on your last nerve. And you begin, you know, we all do it. You're there like, Jesus, this child is testing my salvation. Am I really saved? I don't know, because these hands be twitching. Anyway. It's a running joke my husband and I have, like, whenever like our son is really going off, like we're just like, whew, Jesus, hold me back. The hand just begins, we don't even mean to, but the hand just, it starts to twitch just by our side and we're like, God, restrain me, because this boy, anyway, gotta love him. We've all been there. I can't even front. I think I was the worst 3-nager in existence, so I think I'm to blame for all of this madness. But guys, I think I'm gonna need CPR. This sweat, it ain't right. Guys, I lost where I was, and if my makeup starts to disappear, you know it's because I'm wiping my face because I'm sweating. So yeah, literally, we think when we get to the promised land, it's all going to be easy. Wrong. You're still going to have responsibility there. You're still going to have to hold on to that joy, that faithfulness, that trust, that gratitude that you cultivated in the wilderness. You're still going to have to practice that and cultivate that some more in the promised land. Because I'm sure as soon as you get to the promised land, I'm sure that's when they start, the Israelites, they complain all the time. And they forgot God so quick. And that's us all the time. Like, we'll get the promise and we get the blessing, or we get the answered prayer, and at the moment we're like, oh God, you're great, you're amazing, and then in 2 seconds we begin either idolizing the promise, or we begin neglecting the promise and then treating it like it's a curse, and God's like, wait a minute, this is why I don't give y'all nothing. No, I'm joking. He's a faithful father and he gives us more than what we deserve, honestly. Oh, let's hit this car. Anyways, but yeah, so if you have that belief, like, when I get to the promised land, it's going to be easy. No, like, everything, every part of life comes with its own responsibility, comes with its own level of work. But in that, not to be like, oh my gosh, so I'm always going to have to slave for the rest of my life. No, every element comes with its own element of grace. So there's a grace over the responsibility that he's given you. Let's give the example of parenting, like, you know, or even getting married, guys. Like, you know, so many people are crying like, oh, I need to get married, whatever, thinking that suddenly you're just going to be happy because it's a companion, and then you get shocked when you realize, oh, there's actually an element of work and sacrifice and commitment, and I actually have to exercise what the word says that love is, which is love is patient, kind, keeps no record of wrongs, it is not self-seeking, it is not selfish, it is not rude. You will be tested on every single one of those things, and we start getting surprised like, oh my gosh, what do you mean this person isn't everything I ever dreamed of? Then we begin jumping from person to person, thinking it's the person that's the problem, rather than actually allowing God to develop us and develop that relationship and that marriage, right? So let's be real. I'm keeping it real. I'm keeping it realer than real. Realer than real. Anyway, you guys, you're gonna have to come collect me, because I'm like baby free right now. So I'm feeling myself. I'm feeling like my normal self. I'm not fighting anybody to, you know, to stop grabbing the tripod. There's no baby crying in the back. I'm here. I'm free. Babies are with dad. I'm like, I'm Gucci, guys. So I can talk all day. But yeah, anyway, like I said, like, everything where God has called you to, there will be a grace over that. So in that, you know, understand that yes, when you get to the promised land, or when you get your promise, there's still going to be work involved, but God's grace will enable you to overcome and to do the work that's necessary. Okay, yes. Okay, so misconception number 3 is that the promised land will look like my vision board. Now, you might not say it like that, but you pretty much, it might look like this. You think that whatever you want, like, whatever it is, whatever wild imagination that you have that you want, like, it has to be, like, God has to do it. So you take that scripture literally, like, oh, whatever I ask for, yeah, I'll get it. Even if it's not in alignment with God's will, even if it's completely anti-scripture, even if it is completely selfish and it's gonna, you know, hinder somebody else, you know, you really think, whatever I want, like, God's like my genie, I can just ask for whatever and just snap. Or, you know, that thing of manifest, I'm just gonna believe it really hard and the universe will bring it back to me. Guys, I rebuke that. I'm sick of hearing manifest. I'm sick of hearing universe. What? Who created the universe? God. So why are you looking at the created thing to provide you and sustain you? Ooh, guys, that was a motorbike. That sounded really loud. Anyway, literally, like, ain't no universe type thing. It's God. God. Put a name on that. You better put a name on that. Put some respect on that name. Anyway, so guys, the promised land is not going to be your vision board. Number one, because like, literally, there's a proverb that says pretty much the heart of man is really, it's like wicked. I don't think it's a proverb. I think it's in the Old Testament somewhere, but it's like the heart of man is wicked, and we know it because you know how where our mind can go sometimes. And I can attest to this. There are things that I wanted and prayed for, like probably yesterday, or like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, that I'm so glad God didn't provide it, because it would have really been detrimental to not just me, but those around me, you know? So sometimes it's like, we have to realize that when we pray in accordance to God's will, that's what we're supposed to be doing. It's not just like, whatever I want, I'm going to snap my fingers and God will give it to me. So you start complaining, God, why don't I have like a man? Why don't I have this? Why don't I have this? When meanwhile, you're actually tearing up like at your job and you're asking for a new one, and you're actually not grateful, or you're not serving where you are or whatever, and then you're wondering why God might give you a new thing. And it's like, maybe because you still need to develop in some areas, you know what I mean? So sometimes we think that God just has to do whatever we want, or that he will do whatever we want, and then we somehow feel like, why is he angry at me, or why is he not answering my prayers? And it's like, sometimes it's not even a no, sometimes it's a not yet. But other times, like, it's just because it's not in his will. God is sovereign, right? So this can be confusing to understand. Sometimes you hear that and you're like, so then I might as well not ask for anything, because if he's sovereign, he's going to do what he wants at the end of the day anyway. So why should I even ask for anything? No, the idea is we ask anyway. Like it says, ask and you shall receive. So you never know if you never ask. So ask, and the idea is to be so connected to God that you ask in accordance to his will anyway, and so surrendered to him that you are okay if it doesn't go your way, or if he rearranges your steps. Do you know what I mean? So it's like believing and trusting and being full of faith, like, God, I'm praying for this, and pray for it, and understand that if, you know, if it's his will, he will grant it. If it is not, we have to be so trusting and surrendered that, you know what, I trust that there's a reason for this. I might not understand it, I might not like it right now, but there's a reason for this. Yeah, so God is sovereign, meaning like his will triumphs over all. Even if things look bad, like God's sovereign will is still overseeing all of that, and at the end of the day, everything will come together as it needs to. God looks at the big picture. We look at today, tomorrow, the next 50 years, the next 100 years. God looks at all of eternity, and he has the conclusion in hand. Like he knows how it's all going to finish. It's in Revelation, people, if you really want to know. So he knows how it's all going to go. So he's not just looking at our today, tomorrow, and he does look at those things, but he's not just keeping that in mind. He's keeping the whole picture in mind, right? He's not just like, oh, it's just your life that I'm looking at. No, he's looking at everybody's, all eternity, all creation, everything, right? So he's a good father and he loves you, but he loves everyone. He loves us all. So he's looking out for the whole creation, everything, right? There's I think in Proverbs it says in like 3 places. One place it's like, it says, many are the plans of a man's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose. Or man may plan, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. And then there's another one that says, you know, many are the plans of a man's heart, but in the end it all leads to death. And there's another one that says, you know, a man's heart plans his ways, but it's the Lord that determines his steps. So all of those point to the fact that like our plans are like, they change because we change. Our wants change, our needs change, our desires change. But God, that's why God prevails, because he's consistent. He is never changing. He's not led by just his feelings, like, oh, because I'm feeling this way, I'm gonna do, you know what I mean? Like he is consistent. He knows the beginning from the end from the beginning. So he plans according to that, right? Not just according to just, you know, teenage emotions or like, you know what I mean, hormones or whatever. He's consistent like that, right? You know, like, because we make many plans. Even as believers, you can make so many plans, but not all of them are in alignment to God's will. And that's where we need to be flexible to know, like, okay, I'm gonna make this plan, and it's good to plan. Like, don't think, oh fine, I just might as well never plan for the rest of my life. It's good to plan, but just have that flexibility to know, like, if God intervenes, I know it's for the better. Just have that peace. Yeah, so next time you retrace your steps, just thank him for like saving you wasted time and energy, and you know, just trust that he's leading you in the right direction. Ooh, this last one, misconception number 3. Okay, misconception number 3. Whew. The promised land will always look like a finished product. My gosh, so many people have left, abandoned, fled, run away, quit on, you know, disregarded a potential promised land because it hasn't looked like, you know, crispy magazine cover. You get there and you're like, ooh, this ain't what I expected, Lord. It's real. Like, sometimes whether you're like, I don't know, like you get the new job, or you get the new house, or you get the husband, or you get the wife, or you get the kids, or you get the situation, or you get the business, and you realize, oh, up close, it ain't pretty. Like, this ain't looking like what I thought it would look like. What? This ties back to the promised land, you know, you have responsibility over the promised land. There's an element of cultivation that we have to put in. God has given us responsibility over it. So it's like, sometimes we run and we're like, we're looking at face value. There's a scripture that says, you know, man looks pretty much at the outer appearance, whereas God looks at the heart of a thing, right? And so often we're like, let's say like you're so excited to get married, then you get married, and then like it's almost like you're excited about the idea of being married, you're excited about the hype, you're excited about getting engaged and taking pictures and getting married and having all the sweet pictures and the memories and everyone gassing you up and all of that. And then you actually get to the point after the honeymoon and you're like, actually, one, I either don't like this person. Two, like, this isn't what I signed up for. Three, maybe like the idea of being with somebody is irritating to you. But the thing is, sometimes then we allow that to be like, oh, okay, then this just mustn't be it. I must have got it wrong, so let me just like, you know, leave kind of thing. And it's like, it's not always the case. Sometimes there are things like, just because you cannot see the outer beauty, it doesn't mean that the properties for it to be beautiful are not there. Does that make sense? So let's talk about, like, I always like talk, well, anyway, I don't always like talking about it, but let's say gold. Now, I'm not a mineralist or whatever, so don't come for me. But gold, I'm pretty sure in its rawest form, gold does not look like the golden bars you see in TV that, you know, robbers are trying to steal from the bank or whatever. Gold doesn't look like, you know, the gold jewelry that we have, this ring of mine, all of that stuff. It doesn't come looking like this. It doesn't come in like the form that we love and we, you know, accept as being beautiful. It comes like, you know, oftentimes it's intertwined with other elements, with silver, with this, with that, with, you know, just like kind of like a base stone to keep it together. The golden nuggets are like looking like turds, or looking like, you know, chewed up bits of gum that you've just dropped on the floor or something. That's what they look like. They don't look aesthetically pretty in the way that we look at them, like, you know, jewelry and statues and gold things that we look at today. So it doesn't mean that gold doesn't have the properties to become beautiful, because with some refining, with some cultivating, with some patience, with some persistence, with some work, with some effort, they come out to be the most beautiful pieces. Like golden statues, guys, golden jewelry, golden, you know, everyone puts gold on everything these days. People are even eating gold. That's insane. But anyway, like with some work, with some effort, with some, you know, the grace, I guess, that God has led you to that place, that grace will lead you to be patient in that cultivating, in that process of the thing becoming beautiful. So often we think it's just going to be like just set up for us, like, oh, it's all just going to be there and I just have to rock up. But quite often we just rock up and we're actually the ones that ruin it, right? Because we think we're perfect and we're like, yes, everyone else is the problem. Actually, it's not me. When you actually came and you disturbed the peace and you don't think that you have a part to play in all of this. Like, you're just there sitting on your butt whilst everyone else is trying to make the promised land pretty, and you're just sitting there like, you guys aren't working hard enough, you're not trying hard enough. And it's like, you're sitting there on your booty, you ain't doing squat. So it's like, you pick up a shovel and you help us, and maybe we can actually make this thing something that we can be proud of together, right? So yeah, those are some misconceptions anyway that I have observed in us as human beings, and maybe even my own life as well, about the promised land and assumptions that we make. But I just pray that's an encouragement to you guys, like, and that you can learn to be content wherever you are, and don't always start trying to fight for the next destination, because it's like you need to learn to cultivate that peace, that joy, that contentment where you are, because each stage comes with its own level of responsibility and tests and challenges. The Israelites still had to fight off other armies. The Israelites still had to, you know, deal with the mess that was, you know, left over in the promised land. It wasn't just like all set up like, you know, a big old hotel for them to just be waited on hand and foot. No, they had to work. And God's grace was with them in that work, right? So yeah, I pray it's been an encouragement to you. If this has encouraged you, drop a comment below, and, you know, maybe add some other misconceptions that maybe you have had or that you've heard about the promised land. What have you thought about the promised land? You know, whether the promised land is like a new job or a marriage or this or that, other things that you've thought like, oh, it's going to be all this and that and whatever, and maybe you got a rude awakening or your eyes were open when you actually got there and you're like, oh, hang on, you know, I actually have a part to play in this, right? So leave a comment below, like, what are some misconceptions of the promised land that you may have had? And yeah, share this and like it and subscribe to my channel. Be sure to follow my Instagrams, yes. peaceinthepromise.hq and my personal one, Marimba Saruga. And follow my podcast. Yeah, listen to my podcast, Peace in the Promise Pod. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. I say we like it's a group, it's just me. And yeah, check out my website, peaceinthepromise.com. I've got my blog there too, and I sometimes write some stuff, and I'm really missing writing, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to get back into it. But I got kids, I'm pregnant, I'm hot, so I'm not making any promises. But yes guys, thank you for tuning in. I've missed this so much, you have no idea. But yeah, stay tuned. Next video should be out either Monday or Wednesday. But yeah, until the next video, peace.